When a billionaire grieving his brother offers a napkin to a crying waitress in an alley, neither imagines it's the start of a love that could rewrite both their lives. But can two broken hearts bridge two different worlds? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The 24-hour diner buzzed with the usual early morning crowd, truck drivers grabbing coffee, night shift workers ending their day, and early risers starting theirs. Marina Ellis wiped down the counter one last time, her movements slow with exhaustion. Her blonde hair, once neatly tied back, now had strands escaping around her face. The blue uniform that had been crisp 8 hours ago now hung on her slim frame, smelling of bacon grease and coffee. "You heading out, sweetie?" asked Doris, the older waitress taking over the morning shift. Her kind eyes took in Marina's pale face. "You look beat." "Long night," Marina said, forcing a smile. What she didn't say was that before her shift, she'd spent 2 hours at Golden Sunset Care Home where her mother hadn't recognized her. "Again. Mom, it's me." "Marina," she had said, holding her mother's hand. Barbara Ellis, only 52 but ravaged by early-onset dementia, had smiled politely. "You're very nice. Are you the new nurse?" Each time it happened, Marina told herself she was prepared. Each time, it felt like a knife to the heart. "You take care now," Doris called as Marina headed to the back room to grab her things. Marina changed out of her uniform top into a simple t-shirt, punched her time card, and walked out the back door into the alley. The morning air was cool against her skin, the city just waking up. She could hear traffic picking up on the main street, but here in the alley she was alone. That's when it hit her, the crushing weight of everything. Her mother's vacant eyes, the mounting medical bills, the apartment she could barely afford, the dreams of college she'd abandoned when her mother got sick 3 years ago. Marina leaned against the brick wall and slid down until she was sitting on the ground. The tears came suddenly, her shoulders shaking with sobs she couldn't control. She pressed her sleeve against her mouth, trying to muffle the sound. She almost never cried. There wasn't time for crying in her life. "Excuse me." The voice was deep and quiet. Marina looked up, mortified to find someone watching her fall apart. Through tear-blurred vision, she saw a man kneeling beside her, his face a mix of concern and hesitation. He held out a pristine white napkin. "I don't mean to intrude," he said. "I just thought you might need this." Marina stared at him, then at the napkin. He was handsome. No, beautiful was the right word. Dark hair that looked like it had been styled but was now slightly out of place. A face with angles that seemed carved from marble. And his eyes, grey like a storm cloud, watching her with unexpected gentleness. He wore an expensive charcoal grey suit that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. Despite his obvious wealth, there was something disheveled about him, like someone who had been awake all night. "Thank you," she finally said, taking the napkin and wiping her eyes. "I'm fine, really." "Of course you are," he said, and there was no sarcasm in his voice. Just simple understanding. Marina expected him to walk away. People like him, wealthy, important-looking, didn't linger in alleys behind diners. But instead, he sat down next to her on the ground, his back against the same brick wall, seemingly unconcerned about his expensive suit. They sat in silence for a moment. It should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. There was something comforting about his presence. No questions, no advice, just someone being there. "My bus should be here soon," Marina finally said, not knowing why she felt the need to explain. "Where are you headed?" he asked. His voice was cultured but tired. "Home." "End of shift," she said, gesturing to her diner name tag she'd forgotten to remove. He nodded, then looked at her with those storm-grey eyes. "Can I buy you breakfast?" Marina laughed before she could stop herself. "I just spent 8 hours serving breakfast." A slight smile touched his lips. It transformed his face, making him seem suddenly younger. "Fair point. Besides," Marina added, "I don't even know your name." Lucienne Hart." "Marina Ellis," she said. "Marina," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "I'm not trying to be forward. I just—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "I don't want to go home yet." There was something in the way he said it that resonated with her. She recognized the feeling, when your home wasn't a refuge, but just another place filled with problems waiting for you. There are plenty of fancy breakfast places downtown, she said, wondering why she was continuing this conversation. I'd rather eat at your diner, he said. Marina looked at him with skepticism. Why? Lucienne met her gaze directly. Because it's real. And right now, I need something real. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Marina studied him more carefully. Despite his expensive clothes and good looks, there was something broken in his eyes. Something she recognized. The food's not that great, she admitted. I should. No, I serve it every night. This time his smile was broader. I'll take my chances. Marina knew she should say no. Strange men in alleys offering breakfast weren't usually the start of good stories, but something about Lucienne Hart felt safe, genuine, and the thought of going back to her empty apartment suddenly seemed unbearable. Okay, she said, but I warn you Doris will give you the evil eye for sitting in her section with the girl who just got off shift. I can handle Doris, he said with mock seriousness. They walked back into the diner together, Marina leading the way. As expected, Doris raised an eyebrow when Marina slid into a booth with a man in a suit that screamed money. Thought you were headed home, sweetie, Doris said, approaching with her coffee pot. Change of plans, Marina replied. Doris, this is Lucian. He's, a friend. Doris filled their cups with coffee, giving Lucian a once-over. Never seen him before. We just met, Lucienne said simply. Doris looked surprised at his honesty. Well, at least you're not a liar. What can I get you folks? They ordered. Pancakes for Marina, eggs and toast for Lucian. When Doris walked away, Marina fiddled with her napkin. So, Lucian Hart, what has you out so early in a suit that probably costs more than my car? Lucian's face darkened slightly. I was at St. Mary's Hospital all night. I'm sorry, Marina said immediately. Is someone sick? Lucienne stared into his coffee. My brother. He was sick for a long time. He died around 4 a.m. Marina felt her heart drop. And you're here having breakfast with me? Lucienne, you should be with your family. There is no family, he said flatly. Just me. And my brother's gone now, so... He trailed off, then looked up with eyes so full of contained pain that Marina had to look away. I'm sorry, she said again, feeling inadequate. Don't be, it wasn't unexpected. Matt had been fighting addiction for years. This time, his body just couldn't take it anymore. Marina reached across the table and put her hand over his. It was an instinctive gesture, the kind she might make with any customer who shared a painful story. But when her fingers touched his, something electric passed between them. His hand was warm and strong, and he turned it to hold hers briefly before they both pulled away. What about you? Lucienne asked. Why were you crying in that alley? Marina considered making something up, but after his honesty, she couldn't. My mother has early onset dementia. She's in a care facility. I visit her before every shift, and today she didn't know who I was. Lucienne nodded slowly. That's its own kind of death, isn't it? Having someone still here but gone at the same time. Exactly, Marina whispered, surprised at how perfectly he'd captured the feeling. Their food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. Marina studied Lucienne when he wasn't looking. Despite his obvious wealth and model-like appearance, there was nothing pretentious about the way he ate his simple diner breakfast. He seemed genuinely content to be there. So what do you do, Lucienne? She finally asked. Besides rescue crying waitresses in alleys? He smiled slightly. I run a company, Hart Luxury Design. We create high-end products and spaces. Marina nearly choked on her coffee. Wait, Hart Luxury? Like the Hart Towers downtown, the Hart collection they sell at Bergman's? Lucian looked uncomfortable. Yes, that's my company. Marina stared at him with new eyes. You're not just rich, you're like super rich. What are you doing having breakfast in a diner with me? Being a person, he said simply. Just a person having breakfast with another person. There was such honesty in his voice that Marina felt her defenses crumbling. For years she'd worked serving people with money. watching them leave insulting tips, hearing them complain about little problems that would have been luxuries in her world. She'd built up a healthy distrust of the wealthy. But Lucienne didn't fit that mold. "Well, person," she said, trying to keep things light, "your eggs are getting cold." They finished their breakfast talking about safer topics, favorite movies. He loved old classics, she preferred comedies. Places in the city. He knew all the expensive spots, she knew the hidden gems. And food. They both agreed nothing beat a good burger, no matter the price. When the check came, Lucienne insisted on paying. "It was my invitation," he said firmly. Marina was too tired to argue. Her overnight shift was catching up with her, and she stifled a yawn. "You need to sleep," Lucienne observed. "Can I call you a car?" "My bus will be fine," she said. "It comes every 20 minutes. Lucienne looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded instead. "May I walk you to the stop?" Outside, the morning had fully arrived. The city bustled around them as they walked the short distance to the bus stop. Marina was acutely aware of how they must look together. Her in jeans and a worn t-shirt, him in his expensive suit. Yet Lucienne seemed completely at ease. At the bus stop, they stood facing each other. Marina didn't know what to say. This entire morning had been surreal. Crying in an alley, breakfast with a billionaire, connecting with a stranger in a way she hadn't connected with anyone in years. "Thank you for breakfast," she said finally. "Thank you for saying yes," Lucienne replied. "It's been a long time since I've had an honest conversation." The bus appeared at the corner. Marina felt a strange reluctance to leave. "I'm sorry about your brother," she said softly. "I'm sorry about your mother," he returned. The bus pulled up with a hiss of brakes. Marina stepped toward it, then turned back. "Goodbye, Lucian Hart." "Goodbye, Marina Ellis," he said. There was something in his eyes, a question, perhaps, or a hope. But the moment passed. Marina climbed onto the bus and found a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she saw Lucienne still standing there watching her leave. Their eyes met through the glass, and she felt something stir inside her, a feeling so unfamiliar that it took her a moment to recognize it as hope. The next 3 days passed in Marina's usual routine, visiting her mother, working her night shift, catching a few hours of sleep, then doing it all over again. But something had changed. She caught herself thinking about Lucienne, about his eyes, his voice, the way he'd offered her that napkin when she was falling apart. She told herself it was ridiculous. Men like Lucienne Hart didn't stay interested in waitresses they met in alleys. He'd probably already forgotten her name. On the 4th day, Marina arrived for her shift and went to her locker to change into her uniform. When she opened it, something fluttered to the floor, a folded piece of expensive paper, and inside it, pressed flat, was a white napkin. Her heart racing, Marina unfolded the note. It read, "You were the first real thing I've felt in a long time. Will you let me buy you breakfast again?" Marina stared at the note in her hand, her heart beating wildly in her chest. She ran her fingers over the pressed napkin, the same one Lucienne had offered her that morning in the alley. She hadn't expected to hear from him again. Men like Lucienne Hart didn't pursue women like her. "What's that you've got there?" Doris asked, startling Marina as she entered the locker room. "Nothing," Marina said quickly, tucking the note into her pocket. Doris raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't look like nothing. Is it from that handsome fellow you had breakfast with, the one in the fancy suit?" Marina felt her cheeks flush. "Maybe." "Well, honey, a man who looks like that doesn't come around every day," Doris said with a wink. "I'd say you should go for it." "It's not that simple," Marina protested. "He's different. His world is nothing like mine." "Sometimes different is exactly what we need," Doris said, patting Marina's shoulder before heading out to start her shift. Throughout her night shift, Marina couldn't stop thinking about Lucienne's note. How had he gotten it into her locker? Who had he talked to? And most importantly, what did he really want from her? By the time her shift ended, Marina had convinced herself to ignore the note. Men like Lucienne didn't just appear out of nowhere offering kindness without wanting something in return. She'd seen too many girls fall for smooth-talking men with money, only to get their hearts broken. But when she walked out of the diner at 6 a.m., there he was, leaning against a sleek black car, wearing another perfectly tailored suit, this one, navy blue. He looked tired, but his face brightened when he saw her. "You came," Marina said, unable to hide her surprise. "I said I wanted to buy you breakfast again," Lucien replied with a small smile. "I'm a man of my word." "How did you get that note in my locker?" "I asked your manager, Carl. Told him I wanted to surprise you." Lucien looked suddenly uncertain. Was that okay? Marina should have been annoyed at the intrusion, but instead she found it oddly touching that he'd gone to the trouble. "It was unexpected." "Like our first meeting," he said. A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. "So breakfast?" Lucien finally asked. "Unless you're too tired?" Marina knew she should say no. She should go. Home, get some sleep and forget about this man who had dropped into her life from another world. But looking at him standing there with hope in his eyes, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. "Same place?" she asked. "Actually, I had somewhere else in mind, if you trust me." 20 minutes later, they were sitting on a bench in Central Park, eating bagels from a small cart Lucien had insisted served the best breakfast in the city. The park was quiet this early, with just a few joggers and dog walkers passing by. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows. On the ground. "You're right," Marina admitted, taking another bite of her bagel loaded with cream cheese. "This is better than the diner." "Don't tell Doris," Lucien said with a smile. "Your secret's safe with me," Marina replied, then grew serious. "Speaking of secrets, why me, Lucien? Why are you here with me when you could be anywhere with anyone?" Lucien was quiet for a moment, looking out at the park. "When my brother died, I walked out of that hospital feeling nothing. Not sadness, not relief, just empty. Do you know how terrifying that is? To feel absolutely nothing?" Marina nodded slowly, thinking of the times she'd felt the same way after leaving her mother. "Then I saw you in that alley," Lucien continued. "You were feeling everything I couldn't. And when I sat with you, when we talked..." He turned to look at her. "For the first time in years, I felt something real. You made me feel real, Marina." His words hung in the air between them. Marina didn't know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. "I've spent the last 4 days thinking about you," he admitted, "wondering if you felt it too." Marina's instinct was to protect herself, to pull back. But something in his eyes, vulnerability beneath the confidence, made her honest. "I felt it," she said quietly. "But Lucien, we don't make sense. You run some huge company. I serve coffee at night. Our worlds don't even touch." "They're touching. Right now," he said, his voice gentle. He reached out, hesitated, then carefully took her hand. "Maybe that's enough to start with." Marina looked down at their joined hands, his perfectly manicured, hers with short nails and a small burn from the coffee pot. Different worlds indeed, but his hand felt warm and solid around hers, and she didn't pull away. "Tell me about your mother," Lucien said, changing the subject. The question caught Marina off guard. Most people avoided talking about her mother, unsure what to say about a disease that stole memories. But Lucien seemed genuinely interested. "She was a teacher," Marina said, the words coming easier than she expected. "Elementary school. All the kids loved her. She raised me alone after my dad left when I was 4. That must have been hard for her. She never complained. She worked extra jobs so I could take dance lessons, have birthday parties, be like the other kids. She was incredible." Marina felt the familiar tightness in her throat. 3 years ago, she started forgetting things. Keys, appointments, then words, then people. "Me." Lucien squeezed her hand gently. "And you've been taking care of her since then?" Marina nodded. "I dropped out of college, took the diner job because the night shift pays more. The care home is expensive, but it's good. They treat her well." "What were you studying?" Lucien asked. "Nursing," Marina said with a small smile at the irony. "I wanted to help people." "You still are," Lucien pointed out. "Just not the way you planned." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the park come alive as more people arrived. Marina found herself relaxing, the exhaustion of her shift fading in Lucien's company. "What about you?" she finally asked, Tell me about your brother. Pain flickered across Lucien's face, but he didn't avoid the question. Matt was 4 years younger than me. Brilliant, creative, but always struggling. Our parents died in a car accident when I was 22 and he was 18. I'm sorry, Marina said softly. I took over the family business, tried to be both brother and parent to Matt, but he fell in with the wrong crowd, started using drugs to cope with the loss. Lucian's voice grew distant. For 10 years it was a cycle: rehab, recovery, relapse. Each time I thought it would be different. Each time it wasn't. Marina heard the guilt in his voice. It wasn't your fault, you know. Wasn't it? Lucian asked bitterly. I was so busy building the company, proving I could make it even more successful than my father had. Maybe if I'd paid more attention. Addiction doesn't work that way, Marina said, thinking of patients she'd learned about in nursing school. You can love someone completely and still not be able to save them. Lucian looked at her with surprise, as if she'd voiced a thought he'd never allowed himself to consider. Is that what you tell yourself about your mother? That you can't save? Her? The question hit a nerve. That's different. Is it? He asked gently. Marina felt tears prick at her eyes. I don't know, she admitted. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing her every day. In a gesture that felt utterly natural, Lucien put his arm around her shoulders. You're not failing her, Marina. You're just human. She leaned into him slightly, taking comfort in his warmth. They sat that way for several minutes, neither speaking, just being present with each other's pain. Look at us, Marina finally said with a shaky laugh. Most depressing breakfast date ever. Is that what this is? A date? Lucian asked, a hint of playfulness entering his voice. Marina blushed. Figure of speech. Because if it is a date, he continued, I'm doing a terrible job. Bagels in the park and sad stories. Actually, Marina said, surprising herself, it's the most honest date I've ever had. Lucien smiled, and this time it reached his eyes, warming them from stormy grey to silver. Me too. As the morning progressed, their conversation shifted to lighter topics. Lucien told her about some of his company's more absurd design requests from celebrities. Marina shared stories of her most memorable diner customers. They discovered a shared love of old movies and a mutual hatred of cilantro. It tastes like soap, they both said at the exact same time, then laughed. Around 9 a.m., Marina couldn't stifle her yawns anymore. You need sleep, Lucien said, standing and offering his hand to help her up. Hazard of the night shift, she agreed, taking his hand. Can I drive you home? He asked. Marina hesitated. Lucien, I live in a tiny apartment in a not great neighborhood. You don't need to see that. I'm not judging where you live, Marina. I just want to make sure you get home safely. The sincerity in his voice won her over. Okay. In his car, a luxury sedan with butter-soft leather seats, Marina gave directions to her apartment building in Queens. Lucien drove himself, waving, off her surprise. I prefer to drive when I can, keeps me connected to reality. As they drove, Marina fought to stay awake, but the comfortable seat and the gentle motion of the car made her eyelids heavy. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Lucien was gently touching her shoulder. Marina, we're here. She blinked awake, momentarily disoriented. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. Don't apologize, he said. You're exhausted. They sat in the car looking at her apartment building. It wasn't the worst place in the city, but the peeling paint and security bars on the first-floor windows told their own story. Thank you for breakfast, Marina said, and everything else. Can I see you again? Lucien asked directly. Marina looked at him, this beautiful, wealthy man who could have anyone but for some reason wanted to spend time with her. All her instincts told her to protect herself, to end this now before she got hurt. But her heart had other ideas. I'd like that, she said. When's your next day off? Sunday, Marina replied. Sunday it is, Lucien said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. My number. Call or text me anytime. Marina took the card, their fingers brushing. I will. She got out of the car and walked to her building entrance. At the door, she turned back to wave, surprised to find Lucien still waiting, watching to make sure she got inside safely. The gesture touched her more than she wanted to admit. Inside her small apartment, Marina kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her bed, still holding Lucian's card. She should have been too wired to sleep after such an unusual morning, but exhaustion pulled her under quickly. She dreamed of storm-grey eyes and gentle hands offering white napkins. Marina's Sunday off came quickly. She spent the morning visiting. Her mother, who was having a good day, she didn't recognize Marina as her daughter, but was pleasant and talkative. Marina tried not to let the disappointment show as she helped her mother brush her hair and told her stories about customers at the diner. She'd texted Lucien the day before, half expecting him to have changed his mind. But his response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Pick you up at 1, dress casually." Now standing in front of her small closet, Marina fretted over what casual meant to someone like Lucien Hart. She finally settled on her best jeans and a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes. At exactly 1 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text, "I'm outside." Marina took a deep breath, checked her reflection one last time and headed downstairs. Lucien was waiting by his car, and the sight of him made her heart skip. He'd taken casual seriously. Jeans, a grey Henley shirt, and a black leather jacket. Without his formal suit, he looked younger, more approachable, but no less handsome. "Hi," she said, suddenly shy. "Hi yourself," he replied, his eyes warming as he took her in. "You look beautiful." "This old thing?" she joked, trying to hide how his compliment affected her. Lucian opened the passenger door for her. "I thought we'd do something different today," he said as he got in the driver's side. "Something fun." "Mysterious," Marina commented. "Should I be worried?" "Absolutely terrified," he said, with a playful smile that made her laugh. Lucien drove them out of the city, the traffic thinning as they headed north. They talked easily, picking up where they'd left off days before. Marina was surprised at how comfortable she felt with him already, how natural their conversation had become. After about an hour, Lucian turned onto a country road lined with trees, showing the first hints of fall color. They rounded a bend and Marina gasped at the sight before them, a small local fair with rides, game booths and food stands, all set up in a large field. "A fair?" she asked, delighted. "Is it too childish?" Lucien suddenly looked uncertain. "I just thought it might be fun to do something simple." "It's perfect," Marina assured him. The fact that he'd chosen something so unpretentious touched her deeply. The afternoon that followed was one of the best Marina could remember. They rode the Ferris wheel, played carnival games. Lucien proved surprisingly good at the ring toss, winning her a small stuffed bear, and ate corn dogs and cotton candy until they were both sugar high and laughing. At one point, Lucien pulled her into a photo booth, and they squeezed together on the small bench, making silly faces for the camera. When the strip of photos printed out, he looked at it with a strange expression. "What's wrong?" Marina asked. "Nothing's wrong," he said quietly. "It's just, I can't remember the last time I had a picture taken where I was actually smiling. Not for a magazine or company profile, just being happy." Marina took the photo strip and looked at it, at both of them laughing, making faces, just being young and carefree. In the last frame, Lucien was looking at her instead of the camera, his expression soft and unguarded. "We look good together," she said before she could stop herself. Lucien's eyes met hers. "We do." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Marina felt herself leaning closer to him, drawn by something she couldn't name. Lucien's hand came up to gently touch her cheek. "Marina," he said softly. "Yes," she whispered. "I want to kiss you," he admitted. "But I'm afraid if I do, this stops being simple." "Maybe I don't want simple," she replied, surprising herself with her boldness. Lucien's eyes darkened. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but when Marina responded, sliding her hand up to his shoulder, it deepened into something more urgent, more real. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing harder. Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "Definitely not simple anymore," he murmured. Marina laughed softly. "Worth it, though." They spent the rest of the afternoon in a happy daze, holding hands as they explored the fair, stopping for occasional kisses that grew more comfortable, more familiar each time. Marina couldn't remember ever feeling this way, like her heart was too full for her chest, like happiness was a physical thing she could touch and hold. As evening approached and the fair lights came on, they sat on a bench eating ice cream cones. "I have a confession to make," Lucian said suddenly. Marina tensed. Here it comes, she thought, the revelation that would spoil everything. "I haven't been completely honest with you," he continued, looking uncomfortable. "About what?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "About my company. I didn't just inherit a successful business. Heart Luxury Design is... well, it's one of the largest luxury brands in the world." He looked at her nervously. "I'm a lot wealthier than I've probably let on." Marina stared at him, then began to laugh. "That's what you needed to confess?" she asked between giggles. "Lucian, I Googled you after our first breakfast. I know exactly who you are and how rich you are." Lucian looked stunned, then sheepish. "And you still agreed to see me?" "Apparently I'm not very smart," she teased, but then grew serious. "Your money doesn't matter to me, Lucian. What matters is how you make me feel, how we make each other feel." Relief washed over his face. He took her hand, kissing her palm in a gesture so tender it made her shiver. "And how do I make you feel?" "Marina Ellis." "Like I'm the most important person in the world," she said honestly. "Like I'm seen." Lucian's eyes darkened with emotion. "You are seen. I see you." As the fair began to close down around them, they reluctantly made their way back to the car. The drive back to the city was quieter, both of them lost in thoughts about what was happening between them. Lucian held her hand across the console, occasionally lifting it to his lips, sending warmth spiraling through her with each touch. When they reached her apartment building, Lucian walked her to the door. "I have to fly to London tomorrow," he said reluctantly. "Business meetings I can't reschedule. I'll be gone for 5 days." Marina tried not to show her disappointment. Of course, his life wouldn't pause for her. "I understand. But I'd like to call you," he continued. "Every day if that's okay, and when I get back..." "Yes?" Marina prompted when he hesitated. "When I get back, I'd like to take you somewhere special, somewhere worthy of what's happening between us." Marina reached up to touch his face, still amazed that she could. "Today was special, Lucian. You don't need to impress me." He turned his head to kiss her palm. "It's not about impressing you. It's about showing you that you deserve beautiful things, beautiful experiences." Before she could argue, he kissed her, a deep, lingering kiss that left her breathless. "5 days," he murmured against her lips. "Then I'm all yours." Marina watched him drive away, her heart fuller than it had been in years. She climbed the stairs to her apartment in a happy daze, hardly noticing the peeling paint and flickering hallway light that usually depressed her. Inside, she kicked off her shoes and flopped onto her bed, hugging the small stuffed bear Lucian had won for her. 5 days suddenly seemed like an eternity. Her phone buzzed with a text. It was from Lucian. "Already missing you. Sweet dreams, Marina." She hugged her phone to her chest, smiling like a teenager. Just as she was about to text back, another message came through. This one was from Golden Sunset Care Home, and it wiped the smile from her face instantly. "Ms. Ellis, please call urgently regarding your mother." Marina's hand trembled as she dialed the number for Golden Sunset Care Home. Her heart pounded in her chest, mind racing with worst-case scenarios. "Golden Sunset, this is Nancy speaking. This is Marina Ellis. I got a message about my mother," Marina said, her voice tight with fear. "Yes, Ms. Ellis, your mother had a fall earlier this evening. She's okay, but the doctor wants her monitored overnight. She's asking for someone named Lily." Marina closed her eyes. Lily was her grandmother's name. Her mother was slipping further back in time. "I'll be right there," she said. Within minutes, Marina was in a taxi heading to the care home, all thoughts of her wonderful day with Lucian pushed aside by worry. She'd sent him a quick text. "Family emergency. Have to go to Mum's care home. Call you tomorrow." Golden Sunset was quiet when Marina arrived. The night nurse led her to her mother's room, explaining that Barbara had become agitated after dinner and tried to leave the facility. convinced she needed to pick up Marina from school. In her confusion, she'd fallen and bruised her hip. "Nothing's broken," the nurse assured her, "but she's been asking for Lily." Barbara Ellis sat propped up in bed, her thin white hair neatly combed. At 52, she looked 20 years older, the disease having ravaged not just her mind but her body. She brightened when Marina entered the room. "Lily, there you are," Barbara said. "I was so worried." Marina swallowed hard and sat beside her mother. "I'm here now, Mom." "Did you bring Marina? How's school going for her?" Marina took her mother's frail hand. "Marina's doing fine. She loves school." "Such a smart girl," Barbara said proudly. "Takes after her father, always with her nose in a book." Marina spent the next 2 hours sitting with her mother, playing along with her confusion, answering questions about people long dead, assuring her that yes, bills were paid, and yes, little Marina was eating her vegetables. By the time Barbara drifted off to sleep, Marina was emotionally drained. She stepped out into the hallway, leaning against the wall for support. The contrast between her perfect day with Lucienne and the harsh reality of her mother's illness left her feeling like she was being torn in two. Back in her apartment at 2 a.m., Marina found 3 missed calls from Lucienne and several worried texts. She called him despite the late hour. He answered on the first ring. "Marina, are you all right?" "I'm sorry I didn't call sooner," she said, her voice breaking. "It's my mom. She fell. She's okay, but it was a hard night. I wish I could be there." "With you," Lucienne said, his voice warm with concern. "Don't you have an early flight?" Marina asked. "That doesn't matter right now. Tell me what happened." Marina found herself pouring everything out. The call, her mother's confusion, the heartbreak of being called by her grandmother's name. Lucienne listened without interruption, offering quiet support. "The worst part," Marina admitted, "is that I keep thinking, is this all my life will ever be? Working nights, taking care of Mom, watching her slip away piece by piece? Your life will be whatever you make it," Lucienne said gently. "And for what it's worth, I think you're remarkable. Most people couldn't handle what you do every day." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket. "Thank you for that. Try to get some sleep," he said. "I'll call you when I land in London." "Hey, you don't have to die." "I want to," Lucienne interrupted. 5 days is too long to go without hearing your voice." After they hung up, Marina crawled into bed, emotionally and physically exhausted. She fell asleep clutching her phone. Lucienne's voice, echoing in her mind. True to his word, Lucien called every day he was in London. Sometimes they talked for hours, sometimes just for a few minutes between his meetings. He told her about the city, about the business deals he was negotiating, asked about her mother and her shifts at the diner, ordinary conversations that somehow made her extraordinary in his eyes. Marina found herself opening up to him in ways she never had with anyone else. She told him about her childhood dreams, her fears for the future, even the guilt she sometimes felt for resenting the care her mother required. "You're allowed to want things for yourself, Marina," Lucien told her during one late-night call. "That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human." By the 5th day, Marina was counting the hours until his return. He was scheduled to land at JFK at 7 p.m. and had insisted on seeing her that night despite the jet lag. "I'll pick you up at the diner after your shift ends," he'd said. 6 a.m. sharp. Marina's co-workers had noticed the change in her. Doris, in particular, kept giving her knowing looks whenever she checked her phone during breaks. "Your fancy man must be something special," Doris commented as they worked side by side filling salt shakers. "You're practically glowing," Marina blushed. "He's different than I expected." Doris patted her hand. "Just be careful, honey. Men like that, they live in a different world." "I know," Marina said, the doubt she'd been fighting creeping back in. "Trust me, I know." As her shift neared its end that morning, Marina found herself growing nervous. 5 days of phone calls had created an intimacy between them that felt both wonderful and frightening. What if the reality didn't match up? What if he'd romanticized her while away? She changed out of her uniform into jeans and a pretty green top she'd splurged on, brushed her hair until it shone, and applied a touch of makeup. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered her things. Hot. Date? Carl, the night manager, asked with a smirk as she punched out. Something like that, Marina replied. When she stepped out the back door into the alley, the same alley where she'd first met Lucien, her heart nearly stopped. He was there, waiting in almost the exact spot where he'd found her crying. But this time, instead of a napkin, he held a single red rose. "Hi," he said simply, his eyes drinking her in. "Hi yourself," she replied, echoing his words from their Sunday date. Lucien closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. His arms went around her waist, lifting her slightly, as his mouth found hers in a kiss that made her dizzy with its intensity. Marina wrapped her arms around his neck, all her doubts melting away at his touch. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien kept his arms around her. "I missed you," he said, his voice rough. "More than I expected." "Too?" "I missed you too," Marina admitted. Lucien tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "I have plans for us today if you're not too tired." "What kind of plans?" "The kind that require a little trust," he said with a small smile. "Will you trust me, Marina?" Looking into his eyes, Marina found she did trust him, completely and without reservation. It should have terrified her, this feeling. Instead, it felt like coming home. "Yes," she said. "I trust you." Lucien's car was waiting nearby, but this time a driver held the door open for them. Inside, Lucien handed Marina a small gift bag. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "Open it and see." Inside was a soft cashmere scarf in a deep blue that matched her eyes. "It's beautiful," Marina said, running her fingers over the luxurious fabric. "It gets cold where we're going," Lucien explained. "And where exactly are we going?" Lucien's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Up." The car took them to a private airfield where a helicopter waited, its blades already spinning. "A helicopter?" Marina gasped. "Lucien, I've never—" "First time for everything," he said, squeezing her hand. "Don't worry, I'll be right beside you." And he was, holding her hand as they were strapped in, his arm around her shoulders as they lifted off, pointing out landmarks as they flew over the city and then north, following the Hudson River. The helicopter landed in a clearing beside a beautiful lake. A stone house stood nearby, its large windows reflecting the morning sunlight. A man in casual clothes approached as they disembarked. "Welcome back, Mr. Hart," he said. "Everything's prepared as you requested." "Thank you, James," Lucien replied. "This is Marina Ellis." "A pleasure, Miss Ellis," James said with a warm smile. "Breakfast is ready whenever you are." As James walked back to the house, Marina turned to Lucien. "Where are we?" "My family's lake house in the Catskills," Lucien explained. "I thought we could spend the day here away from everything, just us." The house was stunning inside, spacious and elegant, with comfortable furniture and huge windows overlooking the lake. But it wasn't cold or showy like Marina had feared. It felt lived in, like a real home. James served them breakfast on the terrace, fresh fruit, pastries, and coffee so good, Marina closed her eyes in bliss at the first sip. "This is amazing," she said, taking in the view of the lake, the mountains, beyond. "But you must be exhausted from your flight." "I'm exactly where I want to be," Lucien said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "With you." After breakfast, Lucien gave her a tour of the property. The lake house had been built by his grandfather, he explained, and had always been a retreat for the family. "Matt and I spent every summer here as kids," he said, as they walked along the shore. "It was the one place we could just be ourselves, not the Hart heirs." "It feels special," Marina said. "Peaceful." "It hasn't been used much since my parents died," Lucien admitted. "I've been too busy, and Matt preferred the city life. But I always loved it here." They spent the morning exploring, hiking a short trail that led to a small waterfall, feeding the ducks that swam near the dock. Lucien held her hand the entire time, stopping occasionally to kiss her as if he couldn't help himself. After lunch, they sat on a swing on the porch, Marina leaning against Lucien's chest, his arms around her. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, strong and steady. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Lucien said, his breath warm against her hair. Marina thought for a moment. Sometimes I dream about what life would be like if my mom hadn't gotten sick, if I'd finished nursing school, had a normal job, a normal life. And what does that normal life look like, he asked. Just simple things. A job I don't hate. Friends I can see regularly. Maybe travel a little. She hesitated. Someone to love who loves me back. Lucian's arms tightened around her. That doesn't sound like too much to ask. What about you? Marina asked. What's something you've never told anyone? Lucien was quiet for so long that Marina thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke, his voice low. I'm lonely. I have been for years. I'm surrounded by people all day. Employees, business partners, social connections. But until I met you, I couldn't remember the last time someone saw me as just Lucian, not the heart name or the company or the money. Marina turned in his arms to face him. I see you, she said softly. I know, he whispered. That's what scares me. Scares you. Lucian cupped her face in his hands. What if I lose you? What if this thing between us isn't real? What if it's just that we were both at low points and found each other? Marina placed her hand over his heart. Does this feel real to you? More real than anything has in a long time, he admitted. Then that's all that matters right now. They kissed, slowly and deeply, the swing moving gently beneath them. Marina felt herself falling, not just into the kiss, but into him, into them, into the possibility of what they could be together. As afternoon turned to evening, a chill entered the air. They moved inside, where James had prepared dinner, and discreetly withdrawn to the caretaker's cottage, leaving them alone. They ate by candlelight, sharing a bottle of wine and stories from their lives. Lucien told her about his first business failure, a line of luxury pet accessories that had flopped spectacularly. Marina described her brief, disastrous attempt at stand-up comedy during college. I'd pay good money to see that, Lucien laughed. Not enough money in the world, Marina shot back, grinning. After dinner, they sat before the fireplace. Marina curled against Lucien's side, both watching the dancing flames in comfortable silence. I need to tell you something, Lucien said suddenly. Marina tensed, remembering how his last confession had been about his wealth. What is it? My company is opening a new facility in the city, a wellness center combining luxury spa services. With medical care, we're partnering with St. Luke's Hospital. That sounds impressive, Marina said, not understanding why he seemed so serious. We're looking for staff with nursing experience or education, Lucien continued. People who can handle both the medical and customer service aspects. Marina sat up straight. Lucien, what are you saying? There's a position that would be perfect for you. Full training provided, flexible hours, excellent pay, and benefits. Marina stood up, putting distance between them. You want to give me a job? Just like that? Lucien looked confused by her reaction. Not just like that. You're qualified. You have the background, the people skills. You're perfect for it. Is that why you brought me here, to offer me a job? Marina's voice rose despite her effort to stay calm. What? No. Lucien stood too, reaching for her, but she stepped back. Marina, I brought you here because I wanted to spend time with you. The job is separate. Is it? She challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided to fix my life. Poor Marina, working nights at a diner, taking care of her sick mother. Let's give her a better job, make her life easier. That's not what this is, Lucien insisted, frustration creeping into his voice. I'm trying to help. I didn't ask for your help, Marina snapped. I don't need you to rescue me. Lucien ran a hand through his hair. I never said you needed rescuing. The position is legitimate and you're qualified. Your situation never entered into it. Really? Marina crossed her arms. So you regularly offer jobs to women you've known for 2 weeks? Of course not, he admitted. But nothing, Marina interrupted. You're not offering me this job because I'm qualified. You're offering it because you feel sorry for me. That's not true, Lucien said, his voice softening. I'm offering because I care about you. Because I see how hard you work, how much you've sacrificed for your mother. Because I want to see you happy. My happiness isn't your responsibility, Marina said, though his words melted some of her anger. No, it's not, Lucian agreed. But is it so wrong that I want to be part of it? Marina sighed, the fight going out of her. Lucian, I can't take a job from a man I'm involved with. It complicates things. Things are already complicated, he pointed out, moving closer. This time, she didn't back away. The minute I offered you that napkin, things got complicated. Despite herself, Marina smiled at the memory. That's true. Lucienne took her hands in his. Look, forget the job offer. That was badly timed and poorly explained. What matters is this, you and me, whatever's happening between us. And what is happening between us, Marina asked, voicing the question that had been on her mind since their first breakfast. Lucien's eyes were serious as they held hers. I think I'm falling in love with you, Marina Ellis. The words hung in the air between them. Marina felt her heart skip, then race. Lucian, you don't have to say anything back, he said quickly. It's too soon, I know that. But I needed you to know I've never felt this way about anyone. Marina stepped closer, sliding her arms around his waist. I think I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. And it terrifies me. Why, he asked, holding her close. Because people like you don't end up with people like me, not in real life. Maybe it's time to rewrite the story, Lucian said. Then he kissed her, a kiss so tender and full of promise that Marina felt tears prick at her eyes. They spent the night tangled together on the couch before the fireplace, talking, kissing, sharing hopes and fears. Marina told him about her dream of finishing her nursing degree. Lucian confessed his desire to step back from the company someday, focus on the charitable foundation his mother had started. As dawn broke over the lake, painting the water gold and pink, Marina realized she'd never felt so content, so completely at peace. They stood on the dock, watching the sunrise together, Lucien's arms around her from behind. I should get you home, he said reluctantly. You must be exhausted. Worth it, Marina replied, echoing her words from the fair. The helicopter ride back to the city was bittersweet. Marina knew they were returning to reality, to her night shifts and care home visits, to his business empire and social obligations. Would what they'd found survive in the real world? As if reading her thoughts, Lucien squeezed her hand. This isn't ending, he said. It's just beginning. Marina wanted desperately to believe him. The helicopter landed, and the car was waiting to take them back to her apartment. Lucien insisted on walking her to her door, ignoring the curious stares of her neighbors. Get some sleep, he said, kissing her forehead. I'll call you later. Promise? Marina asked. Promise, Lucien replied. This is real, Marina. Trust that. Marina watched him walk away, her heart both lighter and heavier than it had been in years. Inside her apartment, she kicked off her shoes and fell onto her bed, too tired even to change clothes. She was drifting off when her phone buzzed. A text from Lucien. Already missing you, dream of me. Marina smiled, hugging her phone to her chest. Despite all her doubts, despite the differences in their worlds, she allowed herself to hope, to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could rewrite the story after all. 3 days later, Marina was back at work, refilling coffee cups for the late-night regulars. But something had changed. She moved with a lightness that hadn't been there, before smiling more easily, humming under her breath. Your young man's been good for you, Doris commented as they worked side by side. Marina blushed. Is it that obvious? Honey, you're practically floating, Doris said with a laugh. When do we get to meet him properly? A quick breakfast doesn't count. Soon, maybe, Marina replied, though in truth she'd been carefully keeping her two worlds separate. Lucien had called every day, visited her at home, even accompanied her to see her mother once. But she'd resisted bringing him to the diner during her shifts, introducing him to her friends. Part of her was still afraid that the spell would break if reality intruded too much. The bell over the door jingled, and Marina looked up to see a woman enter. She was strikingly beautiful, with long dark hair, designer clothes, and the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. She surveyed the diner with barely concealed disdain before taking a seat at the counter. Coffee. Black, she ordered when Marina approached. And information. Excuse me? Marina asked, pouring the coffee. The woman studied her with cold eyes. You're Marina Ellis, correct? The waitress who's been seeing Lucian Hart. Marina's stomach dropped. Who's asking? Audrey Sinclair, the woman replied. I'm the vice president of Hart Luxury Design and a very old friend of Lucien's. The way she said friend left little doubt about the nature of their past relationship. What do you want? Marina asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Audrey sipped her coffee. To give you some friendly advice. Whatever you think is happening between you and Lucian, it's not real. You're a distraction, a novelty. He lost his brother, he's vulnerable, and you happen to be in the right place at the right time. Marina felt her cheeks burn. I think you should leave. He'll get bored, Audrey continued as if Marina hadn't spoken. He always does. And when the Hart Charity Gala happens next month, he'll need someone appropriate on his arm. Someone who understands his world. Someone like you, Marina said flatly. Audrey smiled coldly. Someone exactly like me. We have history, you see, and in Lucien's world, history matters, lineage matters. Do you even know which fork to use at a formal dinner? Marina's hands trembled as she gripped the counter. I think you've said enough. Just one more thing, Audrey said, standing and placing a $50 bill on the counter. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Walk away now with some dignity. Before he does it for you. She left without waiting for a response, the bell jingling cheerfully behind her. Marina stood frozen, Audrey's words echoing in her mind. All her insecurities, all her doubts came flooding back, stronger than before. Was she just a distraction, a charity case? Would Lucian tire of her once the novelty wore off? You okay, honey? Doris asked, appearing at her side. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Marina lied, just tired. But as the night wore on, Marina couldn't shake Audrey's words. By the time her shift ended, she'd convinced herself that the woman was right. What future could she and Lucien possibly have? Their worlds were too different, the gap too wide to bridge. She texted him when she got home. Need some time to think, can we talk tomorrow? His response was immediate. What's wrong? Did something happen? Marina stared at her phone, tears welling in her eyes. She should tell him about Audrey, about her fears. Instead, she texted back, just tired, talk tomorrow. But as she lay in bed, sleep eluding her, Marina wondered if there would be a tomorrow for them. Or if Audrey Sinclair had just shown her a glimpse of the inevitable end to their story. Marina woke to the sound of her phone ringing. Groggily, she reached for it, the events of the previous night flooding back. Audrey Sinclair's visit, her cold words, the doubts that had kept Marina awake for hours. Hello? She answered without checking the caller ID. Marina? It's Dr. Patel from Golden Sunset. Your mother had a difficult night. She's asking for you. Marina sat up, instantly alert. I'll be right there. She dressed quickly and rushed to the care home, pushing thoughts of Lucien and Audrey aside. Her mother needed her, and that was all that mattered right now. When she arrived, Dr. Patel met her in the hallway. She's having what we call a lucid day, he explained. They're becoming rarer, but when they happen, she's almost completely herself. You should prepare yourself. These moments can be challenging. Marina nodded, her heart pounding. She'd read about lucid days, brief windows when dementia patients regained clarity, remembered who they were and what was happening to them. They were both a blessing and a curse. She entered her mother's room to find Barbara sitting up in bed, her eyes clear and focused in a way they hadn't been in months. Marina, she said, reaching out a thin hand. My beautiful girl. Mom, Marina whispered, tears springing to her eyes. She rushed to her mother's side, taking her hand. You're here. Barbara smiled sadly. For now. I don't know how long it will last. They talked for hours. Barbara asked about Marina's life, listened with full comprehension, and offered advice just like she used to. Marina told her everything, her job, her struggles, and finally, Lucien. He sounds special, Barbara said, her eyes wise, but you're afraid. His world is so different from mine, Mum. There was this woman yesterday from his company. She made it clear I don't belong in his life. Barbara squeezed her daughter's hand. When I met your father, my parents said the same thing. He was from money. I was a small-town girl with big dreams. They were sure it wouldn't last. It didn't, though, Marina pointed out gently. He left. Yes, but not because of our backgrounds. He left because he was weak, and because I was strong enough to demand more than he could give. Barbara's eyes were fierce. Don't let fear make your decisions, Marina. If this man sees you, really sees you, that's rarer than you know. They talked until Barbara grew tired. As her eyelids began to droop, she held tight to Marina's hand. I'm so proud of you, she said. So proud of the woman you've become. I'm sorry for the burden I've become. You're not a burden, Mom, Marina insisted, tears streaming down her face. Never that. Promise me something, Barbara said, her voice growing fainter. Promise you'll live your life, not just exist. Really live it. I promise, Marina whispered. Barbara smiled and closed her eyes. I love you, my sweet girl. I love you too, Mum. When Barbara fell asleep, Dr. Patel gently pulled Marina aside. These lucid periods rarely last long, he warned. When she wakes, she may not remember this conversation. But I will, Marina said. She left the care home feeling both drained and oddly strengthened. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Don't let fear make your decisions. Checking her phone, she found 3 missed calls from Lucien and several texts, each more concerned than the last. She called him immediately. Marina, he answered on the first ring, relief evident in his voice. Are you okay? I've been worried. I'm sorry, she said. I was at Golden Sunset. My mum had a lucid day. I'm coming over, Lucien said without hesitation. 30 minutes later, he was at her door. Marina opened it to find him looking worried and slightly disheveled, as if he'd dropped everything to get to her. The sight of him, the concern in his eyes, the way he immediately reached for her, made her doubts seem suddenly foolish. I'm okay, she said, as he pulled her into his arms. Are you sure? Your text last night? Marina led him to her tiny living room, and they sat on the couch. She told him about her mother's lucid day, about their conversation. Then, taking a deep breath, she told him about Audrey's visit. Lucien's face darkened with anger. She had no right to approach you like that. Was she telling the truth? Marina asked quietly. About your history together. Lucien ran a hand through his hair. Audrey and I dated briefly years ago. It was never serious, at least not for me. She's brilliant at her job, but there's a reason we never worked out. She cares more about image than substance. She said I was just a distraction, that you'd get bored. Marina. Lucien took her hands in his. What I feel for you isn't boredom. It's the opposite. For the first time in my life, I feel awake, alive. His eyes held hers, sincere and steady. Audrey doesn't understand what we have because she's never experienced it herself. People like her, people who've grown up in my world, they're taught to value the wrong things. Status, appearance, connections. She can't comprehend that I would choose authenticity over all of that. But your world is still your world, Marina said. The galas, the business meetings, the social obligations, I don't fit into any of that. Then maybe it's time my world changed, Lucien said simply. He pulled her close, and Marina allowed herself to lean into him, drawing strength from his certainty. I have something to ask you, Lucien said after a moment, and it has nothing to do with work or money or fixing things. What is it? The Heart Foundation hosts an annual charity gala next month. It raises money for addiction treatment programs. I started it after Matt's first rehab stint. He paused. I'd like you to come with me as my date. Marina tensed. That's exactly what Audrey was talking about. A big social event where everyone will be judging me, judging us. Let them judge, Lucien said. I don't care what they think, I care about you. And yes, it's a big event with important people, but it's also something that matters to me, something I'd like to share with you. Marina thought of her mother's words. Don't let fear make your decisions. Okay, she said, I'll go. But I have nothing to wear to something like that. Lucien smiled, relief evident in his eyes. We can figure that out together. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. Marina continued her night shifts at the diner, visited her mother, who had no memory, of their lucid conversation and spent every free moment with Lucienne. He took her to art galleries, small jazz clubs, hole-in-the-wall restaurants he'd discovered over the years, places where they could be themselves, away from curious eyes. For his part, Lucien seemed to delight in experiencing her world. He met her friends at the diner, charming Doris and making Carl laugh with stories about entitled customers he'd encountered in his business. He never complained about her small apartment, her odd hours, or the limitations her mother's care placed on their time together. Instead, he carved out space in his life to fit hers, rearranging meetings so he could drive her to doctor's appointments, working remotely from a coffee shop near her apartment so they could have lunch together before her shift. As the gala approached, Marina's anxiety grew. Lucien had arranged for a designer dress, something simple but elegant that made her feel beautiful without feeling like a costume. But no amount of beautiful fabric could quiet the voice in her head that whispered she didn't belong in his world. 2 days before the gala, Marina's phone rang during her afternoon visit with her mother. It was Carl from the diner. "Hey Marina, I hate to do this, but Jenna just called in sick and we're short-handed tonight. Any chance you could cover?" Marina looked at her mother, who was having a particularly confused day, and thought of all she still needed to do before the gala. "I don't think I can, Carl, I'm sorry." There was a pause. "It's just, you've never said no to a shift before." The comment hit Marina hard. It was true. She'd never prioritized herself over work, never set boundaries, never asked for more from life than just getting by. Her mother's words echoed again. "Promise, you'll live your life, not just exist." "I'm sorry, Carl," she said firmly, "not tonight." After hanging up, Marina sat in silence, processing what had just happened. For the first time in years, she'd put herself first. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The night of the gala arrived clear and cool. Marina stood in her apartment, staring at her reflection in the full-length mirror Lucien had brought over. The dress was midnight blue, simple in design but perfectly fitted. Her hair was swept up, her makeup subtle but enhancing her features. She looked like herself, but somehow more. When Lucien arrived to pick her up, his reaction made all her preparation worth it. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes widening as he took her in. "You are breathtaking," he said, his voice hushed. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Marina replied, trying to hide her nervousness behind humor. He looked devastating in his tuxedo, every inch the billionaire businessman. In the car, Lucien sensed her anxiety. He took her hand, rubbing his thumb over her knuckles. "Just remember, these people might have money and influence, but none of them have what matters most." "What's that?" Marina asked. "The ability to see beyond the surface," Lucien said, "to recognize real value when they see it. That's why I love you, Marina Ellis, because you saw me when I was invisible to everyone else." Marina's breath caught. "You love me?" Lucien's eyes were steady on hers. "More than I thought possible. You don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know before we walk into that room full of people who don't matter half as much as you." Marina leaned across the seat and kissed him, pouring all her feelings into it. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I'm just terrified of what that means." "It means we figure it out together," Lucien said. "Day by day." The foyer gala was held at the Hart Tower, in a ballroom Marina had passed countless times without ever imagining she'd be inside. As they entered, heads turned. Marina felt the stares, heard the whispers, but Lucien's hand remained firm at the small of her back, guiding her confidently through the crowd. He introduced her to everyone as Marina Ellis, the woman I love, not as a waitress or a caregiver or any of the labels she'd defined herself by for so long. Just Marina, the woman he loved. Some people were openly curious, a few were coldly polite, but many were surprisingly warm. A doctor from St. Luke's recognized her from her nursing program and introduced her to his wife. The director of a care facility similar to Golden Sunset engaged her in a long conversation about dementia care. A famous chef who'd frequented her diner late at night greeted her like an old friend. "See?" Lucien whispered as they moved through the room. "You belong anywhere you choose to be." Marina was beginning to believe it might be true when she spotted Audrey Sinclair across the room. The woman was watching them with barely concealed disdain, her beauty sharpened by hostility. "Ignore her," Lucien said, following Marina's gaze. "She's not worth your energy." But Audrey was making her way toward them, champagne flute in hand, a false smile fixed on her perfect features. "Lucien, darling," she said, air-kissing his cheek. "And Marina, was it? How lovely that you could make it." "Audrey," Lucien acknowledged coolly. "I believe you've already introduced yourself to Marina. Rather inappropriately, I might add." Audrey's smile didn't waver. "Just looking out for the company's interests. You know how people talk." "Let them talk," Lucien said. "In fact, I'm about to give them something worth talking about." Before Marina could ask what he meant, Lucien was guiding her toward the stage at the front of the ballroom. The band finished their song, and Lucien stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice commanding immediate attention. "Thank you for supporting the Heart Foundation tonight. As many of you know, this cause is deeply personal to me. My brother Matt struggled with addiction for most of his adult life. We lost him earlier this year." A hush fell over the room. Lucien continued. "Matt's death made me reevaluate many things. What matters, what doesn't, the kind of legacy I want to create." His eyes found Marina in the crowd. "And the people I want to share my life with." Marina felt her heart pounding as Lucien's gaze held hers. "Tonight I'm announcing a new initiative," he said, turning back to the audience. "The Heart Foundation will be partnering with Golden Sunset Care Home to create a specialized dementia care program, focusing on patients with early-onset Alzheimer's and their families." Marina gasped. He hadn't mentioned this to her. "This program will provide additional staff, new treatment approaches, and most importantly, financial assistance for families struggling with the astronomical costs of long-term care," Lucien continued. "It's inspired by someone very special who showed me that true strength isn't measured by what you achieve for yourself, but by what you give to others." Tears welled in Marina's eyes as Lucien extended his hand toward her. "Marina, would you join me?" On shaky legs, Marina made her way to the stage. Lucien took her hand, his eyes full of love. "Marina Ellis has taught me more about courage and compassion in the few weeks I've known her than I've learned in a lifetime of business deals," he said to the crowd. "Her mother is battling early-onset dementia, and Marina has put her own dreams on hold to ensure she receives the best care possible. This program is my way of honoring both of them and all families facing this devastating illness." The applause was thunderous. Marina felt overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Lucien pulled her close, whispering in her ear, "I hope this is okay. I wanted to surprise you." "It's more than okay," Marina managed to say through her tears. "It's incredible." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Person after person approached Marina, sharing stories of loved ones affected by dementia, expressing admiration for her dedication, offering connections to medical research programs. Audrey Sinclair was nowhere to be seen. Near midnight, Lucien found Marina on a balcony overlooking the city, taking a moment to herself. "You survived," he said, coming to stand beside her. "More than survived," Marina replied. "But that announcement? Lucien, you didn't have to do that." "I didn't do it for you," he said, surprising her. "I did it because it's right. Because helping families like yours helps honor Matt's memory in a way that feels meaningful. You just showed me where to direct the resources I already had." Marina leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thank you anyway." "There's something else," Lucien said, turning to face her. "Something I didn't want to announce in front of everyone." Marina looked up at him, curious. "I meant what I said about re-evaluating what matters," Lucien continued. "The company, the money, the social position. None of it means anything without someone to share it with. Someone real." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, black box. Marina's heart stuttered. "This might seem fast," Lucien said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. "And I'll understand if you want time, but I know what I feel, Marina. I've never been more certain of anything." He opened the box to reveal a ring, not ostentatiously large as she might have expected, but elegant and unique, with a sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds. "I don't want to change your life," Lucien said softly. I want to be part of it, whatever that looks like. If you need to keep working at the diner, I'll bring you coffee at 3 a.m. If you want to go back to school, I'll quiz you for exams. If you need to spend all your free time with your mother, I'll be right there with you." Tears spilled down Marina's cheeks again. "Lucienne, I'm not asking you to fit into my world," he continued. "I'm asking if we can build one together. Marina Ellis, will you marry me?" Marina looked into his eyes, those storm-grey eyes that had seen her at her lowest moment, and offered not judgment, but kindness. Not a solution, but presence. A napkin when she was crying in an alley. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Lucienne slipped the ring onto her finger, then lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it reverently. "I promise you won't regret it." "I know," Marina said. And she did know with a certainty that surprised her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, her mother's declining health, the inevitable clash of their different backgrounds, the judgments of people like Audrey, they would face them together. Lucien pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as they looked out over the city lights. "When I was a boy, my mother told me that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you're willing to give away," he murmured. "I never understood what she meant until I met you." Marina turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. "And I never understood that I deserved more than just survival until you offered me that napkin." Their lips met in a kiss that felt like a promise, like a beginning. When they broke apart, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "Ready to go back? In? Face the music?" Marina took a deep breath, thinking of her mother's words. "Promise you'll live your life, not just exist, really live it." "I'm ready," she said, taking his hand. "For all of it." 6 months later, Marina stood in the garden of the lake house, watching, as guests gathered on white chairs facing the water. Her mother sat in the front row having a good day, not lucid but calm and happy, smiling at the flowers and the music. The specialized program Lucien had created was making a difference, not just for Barbara, but for dozens of families. Marina had reduced her hours at the diner to part-time and enrolled in classes to finish her nursing degree. She still wasn't entirely comfortable in Lucien's world of wealth and privilege, but she was learning to navigate it on her own terms. And Lucien was learning too, about budgeting, about public transportation, about the realities faced by people without wealth or connections. He'd moved into her small apartment 3 days after the proposal, insisting they find their new home together rather than her simply moving into his penthouse. They'd settled on a comfortable brownstone halfway between the care home and his office, with space for Barbara to visit on her good days. "Nervous?" Doris asked, adjusting Marina's simple white dress. The older waitress had insisted on serving as her matron of honor, and Marina couldn't imagine anyone better. "Not about marrying him," Marina replied honestly. "Just about tripping." "In front of all these people," Doris laughed. "That man would carry you down the aisle if you fell." The music changed, signaling it was time. Marina took a deep breath and began her walk toward the lakeside altar, where Lucien waited. He turned as she approached, and the look on his face, pure love, pure wonder, made everything else fade away. In that moment, their different backgrounds, the obstacles they'd overcome, the challenges still ahead, none of it mattered. What mattered was the connection they'd formed on that morning when she was breaking, and he'd offered her a simple white napkin. As she reached him, Lucien took her, hands in his. "You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he whispered. Marina smiled through tears of joy. "Even more beautiful than your luxury yacht?" Lucien laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "Infinitely more beautiful. That yacht is actually the first thing I sold. Used the money to fund 30 more spots in the dementia care program." Marina's heart swelled with love for this man who continually surprised her. "I love you, Lucien Hart." "And I love you almost, Marina Hart," he replied. "Ready to start our story?" Marina squeezed his hands. "I thought we already had." The officiant began the ceremony, but Marina barely heard the words. She was too focused on Lucien's eyes, on the promise they held, on the life stretching before them. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real. Beautifully, authentically real. As they exchanged vows, Marina caught sight of her mother in the front row. Barbara was looking directly at her, and for just a moment, there was recognition in her eyes. A smile of pure joy and pride. A gift on this most precious day. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss your bride." Lucien cupped Marina's face in his hands with infinite tenderness. "Thank you for saying." "Yes," he whispered. "That day in the alley and every day since." "Thank you for the napkin," Marina replied with a smile. "And everything that came after." Their lips met as applause erupted around them. Marina felt Lucien's arms encircle her, strong and secure, as they took their first steps together as husband and wife. Not into his world or hers, but into the one they were creating. Together. The end.